Caught in a secret affair, I never expected my husband's return to end in bloodshed. A single night shattered everything. Do you take Elijah Davis as your lawfully wedded husband? The officiating priest turned to me. There was silence as I didn't respond to his question. The officiating minister repeated the question, asking if I accepted Elijah Davis as my lawfully wedded husband. Despite my strong desire to refuse, I reluctantly said yes, influenced by the pressure of my parents. I concealed my inner turmoil on our wedding day, presenting an impression of happiness while silently suffering. The memory of that day, filled with anguish, still haunts me strongly even after 3 years of marriage. What makes it even more challenging is that Elijah was aware of my inner struggles, yet chose to maintain the appearance of a happy couple. So I decided to get revenge. Little did I know that my stupid plan would cause a lot of consequences in the long run, which was unexpected. As the months turned into years after our wedding day, the weight of my decision to marry Elijah became increasingly burdensome. I sought comfort in the company of a man named Liam, a charming and rebellious figure, who seemed to understand the turmoil within me. We started our extramarital affair discreetly, meeting in secret locations to avoid any prying eyes. Little did I realize that my actions would set off a chain of events that would not only change my life, but also the lives of those around me. The affair had started as a misguided attempt at revenge, a way to cope with the emotional unrest that had festered since our ill-fated wedding day. However, the consequences were far more severe than I could have anticipated. Elijah, my military husband, was deployed overseas during our 3rd anniversary. It was during this time that I succumbed to the temptation of seeking comfort elsewhere. The affair remained a closely guarded secret until an unexpected turn of events thrust it into the open. I was lonely and needed companionship. However, I was naive to the consequences of my actions. My affair with Liam started one evening when I was bored and decided to cool off my head at a nearby bar. When I got there, the dim lights and low hum of conversation set the perfect atmosphere for escaping the harsh realities of my life. I ordered a bottle of vodka, hoping it would drown the sorrows that clung to me like a second skin. Lost in my thoughts, I became fixated on my phone, where I went to YouTube to watch some videos. Suddenly, I noticed a random guy staring at me. His gaze, intense and penetrating, felt like it could pierce through my skin. He said nothing while remaining fixed in his position. The discomfort I felt grew, and I finally mustered the courage to confront him. "What is it?" I asked abruptly, still fixated on my phone. "You are staring too much. It's creepy, and it's making my skin crawl." He smiled mysteriously and casually slid into the seat beside me. I wanted to ignore him, but his presence was magnetic, impossible to dismiss. "Did you have anything you want to say?" I muttered, my voice tinged with irritation. "Or maybe you just decide to stand, hovering over me for no reason." "I mean no harm, pretty lady." He finally muttered. "Well, your presence is distracting. I'm busy here, and I'll need no disturbance." I retorted, hoping he'd take the hint. The guy, whose name turned out to be Liam, laughed lightly. "Ah, yeah, of course." He nodded abruptly. "I do. You don't need to say much, okay? If you can excuse me then," I said in a drawling tone, expecting him to yield. "I'm afraid I can't." His voice was as calm as still water. I raised my head, my gaze now fixated on him. "You can, eh?" I asked, a hint of defiance in my tone. Liam continued to smile, his eyes holding a mysterious glint, as if he knew something I didn't. His reply was calm but cryptic. "Because you might need some company, especially in a place like this. And I find you intriguing," he said, his voice low and smooth. I scoffed, rolling my eyes while dismissing his statement with a wave of my hand. "Intriguing? Really? That's your excuse for invading my personal space?" "I don't need company, especially not from a stranger." "Well, sometimes strangers turn out to be better company than people you know," Liam said, taking a sip from his own drink. The intensity in his gaze remained, and it was as if he could see right through me. I sighed, realizing that arguing with him might be futile. I turned my attention back to my phone, attempting to drown out his presence. Liam, however, seemed undeterred. "You know, people come to bars to socialize, not bury themselves in virtual worlds," he remarked, glancing at my phone. "And people should mind their own business," I retorted, growing more irritated by the second. Liam leaned in closer, his breath warm against my ear. "But what if I told you I could offer you a different kind of distraction?" I shot him a skeptical look. "I highly doubt that." He grinned, undeterred by my skepticism. "Why don't you give it a chance? What do you have to lose?" I hesitated, torn between annoyance and curiosity. Liam's persistence was both infuriating and intriguing. "Fine, entertain me," I said with a hint of sarcasm. Despite my initial resistance, I found myself fascinated by his confidence. The bar atmosphere, the dim lighting, and the faint hum of conversations provided a bizarre backdrop to our interaction. Against my better judgment, I invited him to join me reluctantly. "You can have a seat, but keep your distance," Liam chuckled, settling into the chair with an easy grace. The conversation flowed, and as much as I tried to stay distant, his appeal began to weave its way into my thoughts. We shared stories, laughter, and even a few secrets, creating a connection that was both unexpected and undeniable. And so, our conversation continued, weaving through topics that ranged from our ordinary lives to profound discussions. The vodka worked its magic, wrapping us in a fuzzy bubble and shielding us from the reality of waiting outside the bar. As the night wore on, I forgot about my loneliness and the reasons that led me to the bar in the first place. Hours passed, and the bar started to empty. Liam suggested we take a stroll outside, and without much thought, I agreed. The cool night air hit my face, clearing the fog in my mind. I suddenly became aware of the choices I had made and the consequences they might carry, but I brushed it off my mind. I found solace in the hands of another man, and that was what mattered at that moment. Ever since that night, I started a romantic affair with Liam, and we were so discreet about it. We only meet whenever the need arises. I didn't do my research about Liam, who he was, what does he do for a living, who his family were. All I knew about him was that he was a very caring person with a charming personality. My foolishness later caught up with me on my marriage anniversary with my husband. Elijah's deployment was cut short due to unforeseen circumstances, and he surprised me by arriving home earlier than expected. The day Elijah returned from his 7-month military deployment was supposed to be a celebration of our 3rd anniversary. Little did he know the surprise reunion would take a dark turn. The joy of his return was short-lived, as he heard funny sounds coming from our bedroom. He opened the door and couldn't believe his eyes. I was sitting naked in the bed with Liam kissing me all over my body when Elijah barged into us. The shock on my face was evident, and more than his, because I didn't believe Elijah would surprise me with his return without informing me ahead. I had called him that morning to greet him, and we talked about our marriage anniversary. Even though I didn't love him that much, I'm connected to him in a way because he was still my husband. He told me he would return home in 2 months, and we would throw a small party for our marriage anniversary. He told me all this on a phone call with him, and I didn't suspect anything from his words, so I called on Liam to keep my company in the house. Liam soon arrived, and we started our chit-chats. One thing led to the other, he kissed me, and we started an intense make-out session. We were so engrossed in it that we didn't hear the sound of Elijah's boot as he barged in on us. His military boots echoed through the silent hallways of our home. The tension in the air was intense as he pushed open the bedroom door, catching me and Liam red-handed on our marital bed. Shock and disbelief etched across Elijah's face as he processed the scene before him. Elijah, a dedicated and disciplined military man, confronted me with a mixture of hurt and anger. The pain in his eyes was deep as he demanded an explanation for my betrayal, but I was lost for words and didn't know what to say. In a fit of anger, Elijah stormed out, leaving me to face the consequences of my actions. For an entire week, he did not return home, leaving me to wrestle with the guilt and remorse that had consumed me. I tried reaching out to him through calls and text messages, but he didn't reply to any of my messages. I had underestimated the depths of my husband's military connections. In a vengeful move, he dispatched some of his military comrades to deal with Liam. Little did he know, he had unwittingly provoked a force far more dangerous than he could have imagined. Liam, unbeknownst to me and Elijah, led a gang with a reputation for ruthless retaliation. The gang, feeling the sting of their leader's humiliation, descended upon our home, seeking revenge. In the ensuing chaos, Elijah confronted me about my extramarital affair, his anger turning into disbelief as the gang members barged in. The room echoed with gunfire as the gang unleashed a hail of bullets on my unsuspecting husband. 7 shots to the chest silenced the room, leaving Elijah lifeless on the floor. As quickly as they came, the gang fled, leaving me to face the grim aftermath, and my husband fell victim to the chaos. The initial shock and disbelief clung to the air as I struggled to comprehend the horrifying turn of events. My life had been shattered right in my face. It was a devastating moment for me as I held on to the lifeless body of my husband. I wept bitterly and rolled on the floor wailing for help. If I had known this would be the outcome of events, I wouldn't have betrayed the trust Elijah had in me. I still hadn't had the chance to tell him sorry. I never had the chance to tell him the turmoil I was feeling inside me since we got married and to let him know I never really loved him. At least he deserved to know the truth before he died. The police arrived and the reality of the situation sets in. I was arrested and charged with murder. Statements were taken, evidence was collected, and the wheels of justice began to turn. However, as the investigation unfolded, the deeper, darker layers of Liam's involvement and the intricate web of his criminal activities started to emerge. He and his gang were also arrested after several attempts by the police officers to catch them. Liam in his statement lied that I was the one that sent him to kill my husband. In the confines of the courtroom, the air was thick with tension as the legal proceedings unfolded. The court was crowded with onlookers, reporters, and curious spectators eager to catch a glimpse of the sensational trial that had gripped the community. The prosecution painted a damning picture of me, portraying me as the mastermind behind a heinous plot to murder my husband, Elijah. They presented Liam's evidence, a fake voice note provided by him, allegedly containing instructions for me to carry out the murder. My defense team, aware of the uphill battle they faced, tirelessly worked to dismantle the prosecution's arguments. They questioned the authenticity of the voice note, pointing out its lack of concrete evidence and highlighting the possibility of manipulation. They argued that Liam, facing his own legal troubles, had every reason to lie and shift the blame on me. However, the circumstantial evidence, coupled with the emotional impact of Elijah's tragic death, weighed heavily against me. As the trial progressed, the truth became entangled in a web of lies and deceit. The legal battle intensified, with my lawyers presenting alibis, character witnesses, and any evidence they could muster to prove my innocence. Yet the prosecution maintained a relentless pursuit, using every opportunity to cast doubt upon my innocence. The turning point came when Liam, facing the mounting pressure of the trial, decided to cut a deal with the prosecution. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he doubled down on his false testimony, claiming that I had coerced him into confessing to a crime he did not commit. The court, swayed by the seemingly corroborated evidence, dealt a severe blow to my defense team. Faced with the grim prospect of a lengthy trial and the mounting weight of the evidence against me, I made a gut-wrenching decision. I pleaded guilty, admitting to a crime I strongly denied committing. The judge, with a stern expression, sentenced me to life imprisonment, closing the chapter on a tragic tale of betrayal and revenge. Liam, on the other hand, was sentenced to death. I was left to navigate the complex emotions that accompanied the loss of Elijah and the revelation of my transgressions. The journey ahead seemed overwhelming, marked by grief, guilt, and the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The consequences of Liam's actions and the irreversible damage inflicted on our lives became the haunting legacy of that fateful night. In the cold confines of my prison cell, I recount these ugly memories, hoping that my story serves as a cautionary tale for those entangled in the dangerous dance of infidelity. The consequences of my choices reached far beyond my shattered marriage. It was a tragic reminder that sometimes, the price of betrayal is more than one can bear.